the meeting video if you want to.
Just started the live stream.
You just did. All right, I'm going to call to order meeting of the Plattsburgh Sustainability Task Force, November 13th, 2019. So, just hello everybody. Thank you for coming, and I had sent you the meeting minutes kind of early, so I wondered if there were any additions or corrections to that. Hand me the minutes. I've got to write my own copy. All right, thanks. Yeah, because we had had some homework, I thought maybe you might appreciate getting the minutes and kind of updating what we were doing and getting some links to where we were thinking about concentrating our efforts. So the minutes approved. Do I have consensus? Dissent? Okay, very good. So, I had said on the agenda that I sent at the bottom of the email yesterday that Ethan and I would report out, and I guess I'll go first to talk about some of the action items that I'm working on in particular. I don't remember if I told you last month that we've been trying to meet, Ethan, the mayor, and I on a fairly regular basis, and I also bring kind of news from that Climate Action Coalition, the coalition of various groups throughout the region that are working on environmental issues, and they had thought about some things they would like to do, and what came up was the idea of pushing recycling. And I talked to Mayor and Ethan about it, and since PE 59 is a recycling program for public events, we kind of thought maybe the holiday parade would be a good time to try to have a test run of that. So we've been talking to DPW, and Ethan has been trying to figure out with that department exactly what containers there would be, where they would be, yeah. and then I'm working with volunteers to line up people in order to kind of show people, how to do this. The committee, I'll just say as a sidebar, is also kind of excited about perhaps distributing literature as the coalition, I should say, about how to have a stress-reduced holiday season by maybe giving gifts that are experiences, or using LED lights if you're going to light up your house. And so they may be working on that kind of thing as well. But with regard to the just the recycling effort at that event, do you have anything to add, Ethan?
No, I was talking with Skippy, who's running a lot of the management of the event, and just trying to figure out how many additional waste baskets they put out, because ideally we would have, for each trash can that we have out there on the route, we would have the recycling as well. And that would be obviously eventually coordinated with Rochelle's second group, that other group,
right,
and that coalition, so that those volunteers would have a location to go and
right,
educate.
So between now and December 7th, we will pin down those details, and I'll be able to communicate with the volunteers, the location, where their stations will be. And I don't, people may not really have a whole bunch of stuff to recycle, but it's a good opportunity to raise awareness and let people know that, everything isn't just disposable and goes to the landfill. And then, as I say, I didn't tell you what my meeting notes were. After this trial run, then it's my goal to write up a policy for future events, recycling in future events, which I'll do in collaboration with Ethan, the mayor, and the DPW. So, we've got big events that come up, and maybe by the time we, have the Mayor's Cup, and then later anything else we have, we'll have that policy in place. And generally speaking, another thing that came up was that we wanted to try recycling in the offices here generally throughout the city. And we're working with DPW. We've done some investigations, which include seeing how the county does it. And they do zero sort because they have a contract with Casella. But we are limited to what we can recycle here because of, we take our recyclables sorted into the free depository at the landfill. So tomorrow, I think we're gonna have some discussion. Was that it? Yeah. So we're gonna, I invited someone from Casella. I was assured that someone would be able to come to talk to us about how we might expand our recycling services so that they can extend to city operations. And another thing I worked on that the mayor had suggested, he had sent me some materials early on about the anti-idling ordinance, which is PE 615. And I accumulated, I had some discussions with the mayor, and this is just my point of view. I think it would be kind of impractical for the city that has square mileage of 5.5, is it? Miles to institute that kind of an ordinance, considering the fact that we have people coming and going from outside city bounds that would have to be, number one, aware of this rule in the city, and number two, we'd have to find some means of supporting it and so forth. It didn't seem practicable to me, and so I suggest, and I think I might get some help from the Climate Action Coalition to lobby the county to institute such an ordinance. It seems to make more sense that if you're going to have something like that, you would have it in a bigger area. Mm-hmm.
Could it be as simple as city vehicles don't idle?
Oh, I was
All right.
leading to that, yep. But, we don't get any points for that, but it really makes a lot of sense to create a policy for city vehicles. And I've referenced a couple of, one's an actual law and one is a law that is in committee in the Senate. But there's already an existing law that heavy-duty vehicles, diesel and non-diesel, trucks and buses with a gross vehicle weight rating of more than 8,500 pounds, they can't idle for more than 5 minutes at a time. And I don't know how, but this is enforced by DEC conservation officers
for 5 minutes.
with a fine from $500 to $18,000 for the first offense.
Well, in New York City, they have
Yes.
citizens doing the ticketing, and you
Oh,
get
wow.
actually a share of the revenue if you ticket somebody. You have to
Oh,
document your
right.
smartphone and stuff. So there are ways to do it.
Absolutely.
And we might get couldn't we get part points, Ethan, if we had our city fleet converted to anti-idling?
I would have to double check. I don't have that right in front of me.
I think I have the anti-idling thing right here.
I recall discussing.
But there needs to be if the vehicle is in an active work process.
No, it's
Okay.
exempt, absolutely. But I thought for the city policy, we could adapt what came to the Senate floor. It's, let me see, it was a bill from March 2016. I don't see any further action on it, but it referred to passenger vehicles. So we've got lots of passenger vehicles that could be embraced in that. And I got a copy of the law that I could adapt to that policy.
Local laws about anti-idling policies governing local government vehicles, or laws governing all vehicles. So it might be open for that.
Okay, I must have misread that. All right,
Governing local government vehicles. It might be at least
Okay.
worth exploring.
yeah. Here, but that's where I took it from, the points there.
Mhm.
It doesn't mention that, but maybe we could get a point,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. Worth a try.
Okay, well, that's what I've got to report, and then, Ethan, do you have anything to report?
So I had uploaded some information on one of the P3 actions regarding purchase of renewable energy credits. I had certification and documentation that the mayor was able to provide. I had reached out to Joel and MLD, and they were able to provide some information. So one of the things with the LED traffic signals, I was told that they were updated around 12 years ago. So it falls outside of where we can qualify for points, but that just means we were ahead of the curve and
What is it,
being
7
smart.
years or something?
I think for the traffic lights, it's within 10 years, so we just missed
Okay.
that. But
Gee
it's good that
whiz.
we did, we're ahead of the game, and that's fun. And
Yeah.
So
doing
we're
that.
green, but they aren't gonna count it?
So yeah, that's at least what
It's
they're,
old green.
we can still try to submit documentation, but regardless, we've done it, we have that completed. With the LED streetlights, Joel's able to provide, they purchased up to 294 LED lights out of the 2,360. So, and right now they've replaced about just under 5% of the total supply, 114 I believe is what you said. So once we replace the 294 at some point, that will be around 12%. So right now we don't have to, converted to LED, once again, it's not points worthy, but once all the 294 are converted, we would be above that 10% threshold and be eligible for submittal. So even in this first stage, we could still submit that we have purchased the LED lights, and there's evidence that we're moving forward with converting. See if they accept that or not, but regardless, we're still moving on the right path.
Well,
just
It
taking
might be
care.
worthwhile just submitting the documentation we have, as a baseline, and then they can collect that
And then
accept or reject it.
Yeah, and then
we'll add to it.
Yeah, and at that, and once again, we're still moving the meter in the right direction.
Right.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Joel, what's the wattage saving by moving to LED?
The 250 watt HPS goes down, I think it's 80 watts. And then the optics in the fixture, it's a completely different light pattern. It's more efficient with the optics even. And it,
What does that mean? How well
how
it projects
how well
light?
it distributes
Yeah.
the light it has.
Uh-huh.
And it's an adjustment. We're learning that where we had a 250, we can maybe put in an LED equivalent of a 150 and get the same amount of light.
So you're gonna be saving about 2 kilowatt hours a day on approximately kind of deal.
For our rates, we had to burn one for, I think we burned it for 7 solid days, and it was minimal. We weren't sure the meter was working. It just did.
And who pays for the bill to light the streets? Does
think
it
that
come out of the
comes
city
from-
or the MLD? Presumably the city pays for it, right?
Right, I believe it's, right.
So do
No
we have the
free ride.
industrial rate or do we have the commercial rate for the city?
Industrial rate, no, it would be a commercial rate.
Dang.
So save around 10 cents a day through that conversion.
Right, times
$6 a
2,300.
year. How much does one of the fixtures cost? An LED?
130. There's,
So
I don't
payback
have that.
period is about
Did I
4
send you the
years.
PO?
Yeah, you sent me
Yes,
that,
yeah.
so.
So the payback period for 4 years, why would we just not have a policy, even though the existing streetlights aren't burned out, just to go and start replacing, because the payback period is kind of strong?
what we're kind of, not a policy, but a procedure we're doing is if somebody calls in the streetlights out, and if it's just the light bulb, it's getting converted. We're not gonna mess around and try and just change a bulb. If the truck is there, we're changing it to LED. And then we've picked, I don't wanna say we picked, but we chose Ruger Street because of the pedestrian traffic at night with the college. If you go through there, it is a completely different light pattern. It's,
But my question is that if we have a 4-year payback period, why wouldn't we just, as a policy, decide to go and replace them all?
I
We
know
are.
we have a stockpile.
we are not buying any more HPS.
No,
fixtures.
but
But
he
even the
means
existing ones
just
that
go
haven't
in,
burned out.
not as they burn out.
We will get there. We gotta catch up with what's out, and then we'll start doing streets again. Yes.
In the meantime, we should tell all of our friends and neighbors to complain that their street light is intermittent.
Is there, I mean, would it be too much to ask for a schedule and a plan of action? I mean, not that, I
I
mean,
think
Bill,
they've got one,
we
but
do?
I guess I'm asking
Okay.
whether we could, as a policy, just decide to go and replace them all.
Just go
regardless
out there.
whether they're burnt out or not, but it sounds like you have a plan.
We are, but there's other work gets in the way too.
Right,
That's it.
okay.
no, well, I guess what I was saying is to say that
Yeah.
that's the plan, to go out and this is the schedule, of how we're gonna accomplish all of these replacements that we are committed to making, not as they burn out, but just now. or in this period of time? I don't know, it's just a question.
It's a valid question. To do that, we can do that, but as maintenance comes up, we have to, people are out of power,
Yes.
we have to
Right,
shift our focus. yeah.
that's a variable, that has to be
It's-
first, yeah.
We're thinking about as a program, whenever there's some downtime, when we have downtime, the program is to get out there and replace as many streetlights as possible, and
Right,
kind of thing. Yeah, something maybe for some more discussion anyway.
right. Yeah,
And not, when we should check the analysis too, to make sure really the payback period makes sense before we rush into anything, but, so, something
Okay.
we can talk about a little bit more.
sounds good. Any an inkling about when we're gonna hear about the GHG? Grant?
With the grant that we applied for, I believe, probably the second week of December.
Second.
So we'll probably find out maybe by next month's meeting. It depends on what time of the day they release. I don't know, I haven't checked, the state's calendar when they plan on actually releasing it. So, I mean,
Okay.
so assuming that we hopefully receive the grant, so then we could move forward and we could get some assistance and, speed that process up. If not, it's still work that we can, as a work group, undertake. It's not impossible for us to move forward and do our own internal greenhouse gas inventory. So we'll find out next month what that plan of action is gonna be.
I'm
So-
sorry, I was distracted while you were talking because my phone started buzzing. I was gonna open up my calendar and then all of a sudden I thought I had a call. So you said, if you don't mind retracing your steps, you
Yep.
said,
So the second week, hopefully
Yeah,
around the second
I got
week-ish of December, and once again, hopefully we do get the grant. If not, it's still work that our committee and different, city departments can still undertake.
right,
We just will have less guidance or focus in the experience of.
right.
of
And
what-
there's a guide to follow.
Yeah, so it's not something that we can't do, so it's still something that will still be on our to-do list
Right.
as a group.
And our task force members were going to probably play a role in that process anyway. It's just, there's a chance that if we don't get the grant, that the task force members will need to
Play a
play
bigger
a
role,
little
yeah.
bit bigger role. And then, it may be possible to recruit members from the Climate Action Coalition to assist us as well,
Yeah.
so.
So that's hopefully we get some good news next month, but regardless, we'll still keep moving forward.
All right. Yeah, our next meeting, if we're following the same pattern, would be Wednesday, December 11th. So, anyway, we'll get back to that. So, just for the kind of the sake of, having a map, a little bit of a map, and thinking about what components we want to put into our sustainable purchasing process. I took some of the attributes of the kind of more elaborate ones and thought that could serve as a jumping off point, just to consider what we think after our evaluation of the various policies, what we think might work for us. So I'm gonna just allow you to give me your feedback and try to take that down. Anybody have any thoughts? So beginning with purpose, this was the way that Portland started off. I think it's personally, I think it's a way of, kind of establishing the value of doing this, what we're trying to achieve. Waterville does theirs in findings, it's a kind of a similar statement. Thoughts?
I know our current procurement policy does have some language revolving, trying to make, sound environmental purchasing
We
decisions.
just added that.
Yeah, so
Right.
so that's already
That
there.
could serve as our purpose.
So
but-
I guess with the question with the addendum is, do we wanna just, elaborate more on that, or do we wanna keep it, just go right into exactly what the addendum is? I see the benefits of both. I mean, I don't really think with just comparing it to a lot of the different cities and towns, I don't really think it's anything that we can't do necessarily. Personally, I don't know how necessary it is, but that's just my opinion.
I think that when you take that to the department level, the thing that we focus on is the policy compliance, just how binding it is gonna be in their actions.
Mhm.
So maybe what we should do is talk to some departments, or have our department heads talk to some department heads in Cortland to see how it's working and
Uh-huh.
increase their comfort level a little bit.
All right,
And if they
before
tend to
writing a
be,
policy, have
Yeah.
that be the
share
next.
it with them what Cortland does. for
Right.
instance.
Right, I don't think I have Cortland's, but we can certainly find that.
What was the one that you're saying has one?
Waterville, and, do I say that right? Everything that I have locally is the town of Bedford, New York, which is just for recycling paper. And then Waterville is the only New York one that I have. That's Sacramento, that's these two, all of these are Oregon.
I was mentioning earlier, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Lynn. Go ahead.
I was mentioning earlier that Waterville and the town of Ithaca actually have the exact same
Do they?
procurement
They must
policy with
have.
slight
they
language
steal
changes.
it from each other.
Of
So what Dean
course.
will do is just
I
take theirs
mean,
and incorporate it.
absolutely, we
Yeah.
will export whatever
Yeah.
we feel like, but I'm just wondering if rather we could provide some direction to our department's head. Absolutely, we have to, have them be on board and get feedback from them, and before we were to finalize any project, but, is it better and more efficient to give them a draft that's the best practices we can think of for them to then vet?
I think
you
so.
know?
Yeah.
You could frame it, you can present it tomorrow when we have the infrastructure committee meeting, saying, hey, we've been talking last night about this policy, and distribute it to a few department
Yeah.
heads. I can distribute it to the rest and say, we'd like to hear your comments, and
Well, I don't know if we can, it depends on what we decide is the best format and the best content. And, I think I could probably get together, the compilation of all our feedback by tomorrow, but, it may take a little bit more time than that. So just in terms of our process tonight, I laid out a series of attributes, but if you can think of a better way to kind of address how to discuss what to incorporate in our policy, have at it, we don't have to be bound by, the categories that I've listed here, if you think there's a better way.
Are we considering amending our current policy, or
We
is it
would add, I
definitely
think,
gonna
an
serve as an appendix to?
Yeah,
I think it'd be better to
yeah.
add an appendix.
Yeah, we already set the stage by, as the mayor said, and Ethan said, we expanded the language in the preface to the existing procurement policy just a couple months ago to include, language about environmental sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
But then we acknowledge that, in order to give some kind of guidance and have some kind of standards, we'd have to have some supplement to that, which would go in an appendix or whatever.
So how do purpose and guiding principles differ?
Well, in this document, it just says who would have kind of, the why of it, and then the guiding principles kind of elaborate what, see ya, thanks a lot.
thank you.
Sure, kind of elaborate the environmental evidence to
Okay.
support the city's reason for doing it. Everything's connected. Conserve, think in 3D, those are guiding principles. Take a life cycle perspective. So it's
Oh, I
kind of a
see.
statement of values, provide fair opportunities, and
That's one point.
ensure health and safety, uphold accountability, support innovation, blah, blah, blah.
I see.
Right, that's in the, you have them all somewhere in your
Mhm.
email
Yeah.
files. I didn't wanna create hard copies of all of them, and maybe I should have, and I will if you wish. at a future time, if that helps you digest the information better, but, so anyway. So, and then the purpose states, the city recognizes the products, services the city purchases have inherent social, human health, environmental, and economic impacts. The human health, environmental, social, and economic impacts of products and services occur throughout their life cycle and throughout the associated supply chains. The city can leverage its purchases to reduce reduce adverse impacts throughout product or service life cycles and influence positive change. You know, I mean, that's lofty. Those are all lofty. You know, and if you compare that to Waterville, and I'm just gonna go to the bulletin items. It states what their objectives are: minimize health risks to city residents, minimize city's contribution to global climate change, improve air quality, protect the quality of ground and surface water, minimize consumption resources. They want to promote purchase of products of recycled content in order to support strong recycling markets, etc. Maybe it's just style, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe all we need to do is just agree on the content and then we can figure out the style.
Mm-hmm.
So like I had said, like with all that, like, you know, I just assume a lot of like minimizing health risk, all that kind of stuff, the language they use, for me, in my opinion, it's just, I personally think it's fluff.
You do?
Like, I think
I love it. I just think it's such an affirmation of the kind of city we want, but that's
No,
okay.
no, I don't
Yeah.
think it's necessarily, but I just, with like an example is, you know, we talked about it, you know, with Waterville, it's, you know, they talk about, you know, they want to purchase and use recycled products, but they don't ultimately break down the specifics enough or
No.
set the standards or how, like, the implementation they describe in the tail end, it's maybe not as detailed as we saw in
Doesn't have
others. I
to,
thought
right.
that checklist from, the county in Oregon, I'm not gonna try to
Yeah.
pronounce the name.
Multnomah.
The
Right.
gentleman that was here last
Yep.
month has a policy, it's kind of all broken down like that, that's nice.
But the more, I think.
Yeah, but these were all framed in kind of terms of questions so that
Yeah.
departments could,
It gave you an evaluation process.
exactly.
And I really like that component of like, how do we, like, yes, we wanna be environmentally friendly, I think we're all on board with that, and it's great to say that, but now how do we actually do it? And I think
Yeah.
with like these questions and the one Tom had sent,
Cosgrove?
yeah, Tom Cosgrove had sent.
From the nonprofit or the,
The P.
PECI.
Yeah, that one.
that's, yeah, a nonprofit.
You know,
Uh-huh.
it gives more specifics, and you know,
Uh-huh.
we can debate on how specific and how binding we want to be, but I think that gives us a much better foot. Like I could say, like, hey, you're a department and you want to purchase something. Here's some steps you might on your RFP include.
Let me clarify, are you saying you want to get them to ask the questions first and evaluate how they might do it? I just worry that might slow down the process. I'm wondering whether,
Well-
clearer guidelines might be easier to grapple with.
I was gonna kind of say that whatever's mandated by this policy can sort of be separate from the guidelines, and so the people that maybe
Yes.
don't have a really good idea of what they need to do can refer to those guidelines, but they can still comply.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right. Okay, so you're saying that
You know what I'm trying to get at?
we
with
can
that?
serve both purposes by having both guidelines and kind of questions for those who want to have a little more control? Is that what you're
Well, I
suggesting?
think whatever we're gonna mandate by this policy could be simplified, and then the guidelines could be more elaborative.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the guidelines could have the questions if you're going to create an RFP, and maybe you don't know, like you're new in the community development office, and you're trying
Right.
to create an RFP to purchase so and so, and you're not thinking, oh, I should include a component of the 10% of the grading is a sustainable product or service. You know, I like the idea of that being included. We could almost have city boilerplate language, and then the guidelines and the specifics could fluctuate as time goes forward because different materials, maybe they find an improvement on LED lights, for an example.
Right.
It provides more options
So
for people
the-
that know any better
Yeah.
as well.
The kind of products that are available is bound to change over time, so you
Yes.
don't wanna make your requirements too specific so that they can't adapt as those markets change.
And at the same time, I don't wanna just, throw certain departments that maybe to, let's say like black and white drop date, saying, hey, by this date now you have to start, everything you
Right.
purchase now is completely different, because maybe they need to purchase a certain type of engine solvent or something that they can only work on. So I don't wanna, that's what I guess my concern would be, is I don't being too
Exactly.
restrictive from the get-go.
Yeah, well, okay, so since Ithaca copied Waterville, and Waterville is kind of just setting up this, yeah, this is what we're about, and this is the kind of products we're gonna buy, but, you know, we realize that sometimes they're more expensive, and, you know, you can negotiate that, and blah, blah, blah. It's elastic, in other
Yeah.
words. They got their points, they got their points.
Yeah.
Not that that's the ultimate objective, but what I'm saying, that could be a starting point at least,
Yeah.
you know?
No, and I think we could, and then you have something where it says, you know, they talk about recycled paper, and then we could add maybe more specific, saying like, you know, as long as the price increase is within 30% more than standard, or
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
the
that was
virgin
one
pulp
of the
paper.
percentages that was listed. Scott, you were gonna say something. I mean, I'm not Scott,
I
Joel.
just, in the evaluation, you received the bids, and then in the evaluation, if as part of the bid, the vendors had to put in today's value of disposal cost of that product. So if you have a recycled product that has a very minimal disposable cost today, and another product that's new, but its disposal cost is high, that's just
Ah.
another, and it's in today's dollars, you're comparing it when it's brand new.
Yeah,
What it's gonna be 10 years, nobody's gonna know. You're talking about when you're purchasing it, what's the disposal cost? If that's part of the
Interesting.
consideration.
I love that. I don't think I didn't pick up on that.
But it's,
That's
if somebody's coming in and they have a new product that's $5,000 and another one's $5,500, but the disposal cost for the $5,000 one is $1,500,
Mhm.
it's consideration, that's all.
Mhm.
The end use of the product,
Mm.
to evaluate it in today's dollars at receipt of bid.
Mhm.
What is the disposal cost of your product?
Okay. You know what I can refer to too, that I didn't even think to put in this list? I can find it in this big pile of papers. Oh, okay. Is how to obtain points. It says it has to have energy efficient standards, recycled material standards, locally produced organic goods standards, those are each a point each, and forest stewardship standards included in the policy. So as many as 4 points. The policies, Waterville only had 3. Town of Bedford only had 1, because it just addressed the recycled paper.
So, and I mean, and then with the standards, the only standards that they specifically say that they require is saying that for energy efficient equipment using Energy Star, or
Right.
something, I guess, comparable. That's the only one. If we had to include one specific standard, that would be
Yeah.
just to check
That
off the
would
box,
qualify.
but I
Yep.
think we could just, there could be other standards that I'm unaware of, not with just energy efficient, but let's say with paper or any other of these components that we could say, if that's something that we decide that we wanna say, we wanna run either by state or federal standards on this and this as part of the, you know, as you go forward and you wanna purchase, I'm gonna keep going back to paper, cause that's on my mind, but
Well,
purchasing
yeah, it's a
paper.
big supply that we get.
So, I mean, I think that adds a little bit more teeth than some of the policies that we've seen, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I still like some of the language where it says it gives, you know, it gives the purchasing agent some flexibility to not necessarily feel hamstrung by having to purchase a certain thing if it doesn't, you know, do the same quality job, because that's a huge component, because it's,
Right, and
if-
as I recall, that language is in the Waterville.
yeah, so I like that, the language like that, or the language saying, you know, typically when we go out to bid, you know, you're supposed to choose the lowest bid price, as
Mhm.
long as it's lowest qualified bid. And I like some of the language that was included saying, you can go with the higher one, part of the explanation could be the environmental component. So I think, stuff like, language like that, I think would be beneficial to add as well. So it's not too specific, but it's a little more, some flexibility. If that makes sense.
It'd be nice too if you were to include some form of justification as kind of
Yeah.
like what Joel was just saying about the certain products.
Yeah, and I think that's I think, yeah, Joel's point was that
Right.
a very good version of, this is the reason why we didn't go with this product, is because
Right.
at the end of the day, the disposal costs could be higher.
And you
because
say that could be a standardized part of the RFP thing, or?
If
just-
there's a way the vendors can calculate, if it's simply as scrap metal,
Mhm.
in today's dollars, what is the value, or how much does it cost to get rid of scrap metal?
Mhm.
And if your product weighs 2,000 pounds,
Mhm.
you can put as the
You
bidder.
may have to write that out.
you
I
can-
don't know if I'm gonna, I guess
You know,
I could go
it's-
back over the tape tonight and get that down.
You can put the units that you want that disposal cost expressed in.
Right, that's
as-
really thinking down the line,
Mhm.
isn't it? Excellent. But I'm gonna suggest something, and you can accept or reject it. What if, following in Ithaca's footsteps, or whichever one
Yeah.
came
We
first,
steal.
what if we start here,
Mhm.
right? Rather than, I mean,
Yeah, we don't need to
it's-
reinvent
No,
the
it's
wheel.
your-
Right.
Yeah.
It's
It's-
continuing the conversation using their piece.
Yes, exactly. And if there's any other components from any of these that we feel that we'd like to include, we'll do that. But then, if we were to decide this was be kind of like our template, then I could bring this to the meeting tomorrow night when the DPW is here and say, hey, would you check this out? You know, or we can send it as a PDF to all the departments and say, we need your feedback.
Was that one included in any of the emails?
The water relay one, I believe you may have sent that, but we could send
I
that.
already sent it in
Yeah.
the
That one?
email.
That one, and
Yeah.
that's the same, like I said.
And
the
it's
same
if you got the minutes, it's linked in the minutes too.
Okay.
as-
But if you have trouble finding this, I know what it's like, just trying to search for stuff, I can
I'll take a
resend
look
it
at
to
the
you.
email.
I'm amazed when I put in certain keywords in my emails and things just magically appear
Right.
like I want them to.
You said there was a timeline on the projects?
That timeline?
Yeah, like something that's already previously.
Oh, yeah,
occurred.
some of the, like, let's say with the traffic LED lights, they need to be done within 10 years. of-
Right.
Of
To
submitting
qualify.
to qualify.
Are we ready to move on to something else?
Oh, we can definitely move on. I think
I
you've
don't-
got, what we've agreed then, just to reiterate by consensus, is that we're gonna use the water delay, policy as a template, and I'm gonna circulate that. We're going to think over the next month about what, or sooner, I don't know,
As soon as it's ready, yeah.
soon as we can, what other things we'd like to include, like, for example, Joel's idea, and anybody's ideas as I review the tape tonight in order to write up the minutes.
Is,
No, go ahead.
Uh,
And,
so-
all right,
yeah, if we don't have the time to, let's say, make the edits to the water delay or to make.
we can
even-
submit it as is, right, and then just amend it later.
Well, yeah, I meant not, I meant for, like, let's say the council meeting tomorrow, is it something at least we could just, as like a heads up, cause I know the council likes, like, you guys like to know that, you know, there's something's coming down the pipeline, it's not just gonna be like, oh, here's a policy to.
Right, I could forward it to the
Yeah,
council
okay,
for
okay.
tomorrow, yes, that's an important point to make. All right, so what did you wanna bring up?
Action, local forestry program, develop a local forestry or tree planting project or
All
program.
right, hold on, which one is it?
PE 6.18.
PE 6.18. Okay,
A year or two ago, Gizzy Spencer used our, I think it was the Adopt a Spot program, and through National Honor Society, she planted, it was around 100 sugar maple trees and oak trees around the US Oval.
Wow.
oh, that's right.
I don't know if that would qualify.
We can,
Well, we would
We'll
have to,
look
does
at-
anybody have a handheld? We could look up the link, but we can just find that out, you know,
It
I mean,
just-
if
that
it was the
and
last
then
couple years
that-
and,
That program was left with National Honor Society with the idea that an underclassman coming up looking for a project would pick it up, work with the city, do it in a park, do it in a different park.
okay,
And it would be
Cool.
a way for the city to repopulate the trees and not really have an expense.
Mhm.
So there's kind of a tentative program sitting there. I don't know if National Honor
Alright.
Society kept it or if it got,
Right, so we've got two questions. Is what was done a couple of years ago, does that qualify? And number two, there was included in the plan, you know, the idea that it would go forward, so what will we need to do? Contact the NHS advisor at PHS?
correct?
Okay. Okay.
That's cool.
Oh, I had another idea that came across through Facebook, and it's always been something that was attractive to me. And I first learned about a similar program in Long Beach, California, which is my hometown. During the drought season, they promoted the digging up lawns and putting in indigenous plants that were drought resistant. And the water department gave a, you know, some kind of incentive. I can't remember exactly what it was, a reduction of the water rate, or I can't remember. But anyway, so what came across Facebook was this program in Britain that dug up all the medians and planted with bee attracting and bird attracting, pollinator attracting indigenous plants that were gonna require less water, less maintenance and all that. And so I actually gave council members a link to that little blurb, and Elizabeth Gibson, I love this. She even said, oh gee, maybe then the dogs wouldn't do their business on my lawn. But, you know, I was thinking similarly, you know, it could be a voluntary program, but maybe people would do that and then we could cut them some kind of incentive.
What she did was she sold the trees and businesses,
Oh, okay.
families, you could buy a tree.
Oh, cool.
And that, I think here in City Hall is a map of who bought what trees. And if, I think for an extra 25 or 50 bucks, there's a plaque around them of who bought the tree.
Oh, okay.
So in 20 or 30 years, you can go see how your tree is doing. And it's a part of the US Oval.
And
So it was-
it's filed somewhere, probably with the clerk, maybe?
I don't know. I know around the trees right now, there are plaques.
Okay.
Somewhere there's a map of who bought what tree.
All right.
And then maybe with National Honor Society too.
That is
Okay,
part
they
of
would
the
probably know.
office, yeah.
I like it.
So when you're saying the median, do you mean the sort of the part in between the street and the sidewalk?
Exactly.
The swale? Is that what it's called?
We call it snow storage.
What is it?
Snow storage.
Yeah, really. But it,
Yeah, no, I love
it just
that.
triggered that thought.
In Denver, a lot of people use it as like gardens, or they have a lot of plants in that area that aren't lawn
Right.
related. Yeah.
They don't maintain them necessarily like a garden, they just let the
Right.
wildflowers grow. Like, you know, I mean, think of during the summer when you can see wild asters and chicory and all those kinds. I mean, it could even be those that just grow normally, right? That don't require any
Mhm.
maintenance whatsoever. But anyway, I don't know if that's an action.
Should be.
It should be. Can anybody else think of a topic that they are interested in?
Yeah, I can't think of anything right now. Obviously, there's tons and tons of actions and things.
Is there anything for reducing plastic use on the checklist that you know of?
There's
That
gotta be.
topic, the topic that everyone hates,
There's
What's
gotta
that?
reducing plastic.
Oh, gosh.
be. I can't, I would
We
be.
could talk
I'd
about
find it very
that,
hard
we
to
could
see.
talk about that in about 1,000 different ways.
Yeah, there-
Right. Well, do you remember when I told you about?
But this time of year, when you drive down, well, until
Yeah.
a couple of days ago, this time of year, when you drive down the road and you see 500 plastic bags full of
It's
I
true.
know.
that's,
But
Well,
so
I
that's gonna
mean-
be a New York State
In March, the
What's
New
that?
York State ban of
ban on
single-use plastic
single-use
bags.
plastic
Oh.
bags. Except for takeout food or something ridiculous.
But does that only apply to like grocery bags?
I think it applies to more than grocery bags, but it excludes various kinds of bags, like dry cleaning bags and takeout bags. I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly.
but I think that it does apply to like drugstores and that kind of thing in addition to grocery stores, so, yeah,
Step in the right direction.
right.
we get them, but then we use them we walk our dog, we use it to pick up the dog waste. You know, so I kind of think I'm recycling.
Yeah, you're reusing.
Yeah, I'm
but-
guilty of.
Well, they're
doing
less
that. I try to
likely
use
to
them
blow away with a
multiple
little
times.
load in it, you know?
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Well, another thing that I know Elizabeth Gibbs is really interested in, who knows, maybe she'll end up being the council member on the, I don't know how the committees will shake out. But, she's interested in composting.
Mm.
And, did I share this with you before? Stop me if I did. So in Durham, North Carolina, they have a municipal composting program for, food waste. And in addition to garden and all that. But they have private carriers pick up. So you have to, in order to have that service, just like with the garbage service, you have to pay for it. They don't have municipal trucks that do that. And then apparently I can research that when I'm away. There are ways that they're processing it.
So leaves and grass clippings would be included in that?
Yeah, I mean.
Town of Amherst, New York, they have, I've seen it, and it's just this facility, it's Town of Amherst Municipal. They charge you for the leaves and grass, and then they charge you for the black dirt.
Wow.
They charge you for the black dirt?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
What's the black dirt?
the compost
Oh, the
after
compost.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
They charge you to pick it up, and then they charge you to, they
Oh,
sell it back to you.
Yeah, right.
I
Well,
bet
they
there may
did
be a
all the work
discount,
to
but-
compost it, I
you
guess you
wouldn't
could
be
look at
able
it
to
that
just
way.
do that.
But, there's been, as I kind of brainstorm, uncontrollably, I think about how we already take grass clippings and they just put them over near the compost facility. That's where they put all of that organic waste.
Our wood
And-
chips go there.
And the wood chips, yeah. So, it's my dream that one day we will accept
Food waste.
Food waste.
Yeah, so Middlebury, I don't know if you saw this, but they recently got some kind of biodigester for their food waste and compost waste, so.
I wonder if our biodigester for sludge could be adapted.
I don't
That's a
know.
question for John Ruff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Are we having a short meeting, guys? Anything else? Right, shall we say we're gonna meet December 11th?
I will not be here,
All right.
but go for it, cause I won't be here much.
And I was thinking, because of Wouter and Scott being absent, what about a Zoom meeting?
I'm assuming that's some form of teleconference.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it,
it's
so-
a teleconference. I just was a part of a
Oh,
couple
okay.
of them, so I.
Okay,
So
how's that?
latest, and,
Yeah, ultimately whatever works to just make sure that, we're moving forward and things doesn't
Right.
necessarily have to be here.
It might be
Well,
difficult
it's
to
gotta be
stream
public.
that.
But it does have to be public. a
Oh,
good
that's
point.
right, so it has to be
Yeah,
here.
public.
Good call.
Scrap that idea. So December 11th is, for most people, will that work?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, and by that time, we will receive more feedback about possible additions to the template we're gonna use. And, yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for organizing. I feel like I have trouble weighing in on this procurement stuff because I'm not